Hello, happy Friday, everyone. Right, so I'm so excited for this. We've got an amazing guest, the beautiful and very talented Laura Rowe. For those of you who aren't aware who Laura is, she's the founder of Align Lifestyle, and she's a global and wellness and empowerment coach and a trauma and cancer survivor. She's on a mission to help people feeling exhausted by life to prioritize their own self-care. But in a way to understand how they can implement it into their daily lives in a much more manageable way than perhaps maybe you might be thinking. She's on this mission because after struggling for years with anxiety and depression herself, and then eventually ending up with cancer, she learned the hard way herself. So that if we don't make time for our wellness, we'll be forced to make time for our illness. So it's an incredible story. One actually that I'm absolutely dying to hear myself because I've not heard the full story. So this is one of the reasons that I wanted to have her on. She spoke at the Be Inspired event, but it was the day before I was actually there. So without further ado, I'm going to bring her on.
Hello.
Hello, beautiful lady.
What a gorgeous introduction.
Well, gorgeous introduction for a gorgeous lady. Thank you for being here with us and for giving us your time. And genuinely, I'm really intrigued and interested to hear your backstory. I'm actually glad I don't know it, if that makes sense. So obviously I know it the little bit, like what you shared about the cancer and those sort of things, but I don't know it fully. So will you explain what is your backstory? Where how
who are you?
yes, and how did you come to the cancer, the big C? How frightening.
Yeah. Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here because I always love explaining where I've come from and where I'm at now, because, I was just a normal everyday person who, just like all of us, have gone through traumas and really hard times and difficult times. And I've brought myself through the other side. And I really champion now how easy it can be to be able to manage your own self-care into your life. Just like you mentioned then, rather than people think self-care can be really, really difficult and it's another thing to add on to their already busy schedules. And I really show people how we can fit it in without it being really hard. But I started, oh my goodness, it's a really long story, but I'll give you an overview of it all. So I started probably, if we go back early teens, maybe even a little bit younger actually, so probably 12, 13, 14, I experienced grief and trauma. That's when my trauma journey first started, because my nan passed away. And we were really, really close to my nan, and the impact it had on my mum meant that she really needed all of her energy and all of her strength just to take care of herself and just to move through that period of grief and mourning. And it took me a long time to realize that that's probably where everything started for me, because it was the first time I'd ever experienced loss. It was the first time I'd experienced trauma, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. And especially at the time, my mum was really distracted, and back then you didn't really talk openly about how feelings, and you didn't really just, especially the word trauma and things like that, it was just never really discussed. It's wasn't an open subject like it is today.
Well, is it today? That's the thing. Is it really today?
I think it is a lot more, but it's definitely not enough. And that's one of the reasons that I do talk so much about my journey, because people's journeys are going to be similar. They're going to be able to relate, and especially when it comes to talking about things and feelings and maybe things that have happened in your childhood that you might not even have realized are a trigger for continuing behaviors that you may be experiencing now. So that was when for me it first started. And then I found myself at a really, really young age in a string of really abusive relationships. So over the span of about 12 years, I was in 3 different abusive relationships, physical and emotional abuse. And it was really back then I didn't know any better, and I didn't really understand that I'm an empath, and I was really drawn to helping people, and I was just really drawn to broken men, thinking that I could help them, and thinking that I could fix them, was really, in the end, I was the one that needed rescuing. And it really took its toll on me over the years. I experienced such terrible traumas and abuse, and I was constantly stressed out. I was living my life in a state of stress all the time, worry, fear, anxiety, and it would snowball to the point where I was addicted to the stress. Now, I've talked about this quite a lot, that stress addiction is a real thing. You know, we start to cling on to things that keep us distracted, keep us busy, so we don't have to think about the things that are going on in our heads, or we can compartmentalize and move ourselves away from those difficult situations in our minds. And that was absolutely what I was doing for a really long time. And I didn't realize that, you know, things like I was drinking a little bit too much, I was going out partying too hard, and I was just living for the weekends, for distractions, and just really striving for my place in the world. Because of all of that stress that I was living through, my stress container was full, so I had absolutely no room for anything else. So I struggled with work. I've struggled to find my place. I struggled to find a meaning for my life. I was just floating around, really, and struggling with this busy mind. And because I was always in that state, I never realized how much of an impact that mental state was having on my physical wellness, because I spent years and years and years unwell. I was that person that everyone thought was a bit of a hypochondriac, because there was always something wrong with me. And if I would always have a cough or cold, I would always suffer with chronic migraines. I had stress-related eczema. I couldn't sleep. I had hair loss, just loads and loads of sickness symptoms that I would go and get tests for, and they would come back completely fine. Got to the point where I was like, what's the point in me having tests? Because they're just going to come back and there's nothing wrong with me. And
at any point, Laura, did you think, oh, this might be stress? All these things that are happening might be stress? No,
never. I never ever put it together. And I think that was just lack of knowledge of the connection of the mind and the body, and how intrinsically connected they are, and they do speak to each other, and the impact I was having through, obviously, external stress, and then the internal stress, it was just so much. My body was just in a constant freak out. It just did not know how to cope, and I was always ill.
I've spoke about this before, about even now when I come out with it, I think, oh my God, why did I never realize this? Because that was one of the things of my training. It wasn't as a client in therapy that I came across this. It was in my training, the mind and the body connection. And when you know it, you're like, well, duh, obviously they're connected, because it's functioning in my body, isn't it? Completely the same as you. I mean, when I was on your podcast, I mentioned about the eczema, didn't I? And it did not at any point. Well, somebody did say to me, it's probably stress, and I just thought, like, what?
Yeah, and it's such a light bulb moment when you connect it. But I never realized at all that it was stress, and I know over the years people had said to me, oh, you seem really stressed out. And my mum, even, I think it was my early 20s, like mid 20, 21, she took me to a yoga class. Now, my mum does not like yoga. It's just not her thing, and she just found it really difficult. But for me, she took me because obviously I had anxieties and things as well. I wouldn't go by myself. And she took me to help me to calm down and chill out, because she was saying that And it was for years. I'd always say, "Oh, I've got a terrible headache," and she'd say, "You just because you're stressed." Or I'm like, "Oh, I've got stomach ache." She's like, "Do you think you're stressed?" And it just became, it just felt like, "Oh, your mum's just nagging you, and what does your mum know?" And I just for years I was like, "No, it's not stress. It's not stress." And then it snowballed and it got worse, and I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety disorders as well. So I went on to medication, and I didn't want to be on medication because of this stigma, because I didn't think I needed help, because I didn't believe I was stressed. I knew I was busy, but I liked being busy. And I think that was the problem that I was in for so long. Like I said, I was addicted to the stress, and I liked being like that. I liked having, it was terrible. I couldn't, if I was on a holiday, I couldn't finish or leave that holiday until I'd planned the next one. And that was just an example of I was doing one thing after the other, rather than relaxing and enjoying your holiday. I'm like, when's my next one? Where am I going next? Let's have a look at flights and let's see how, and then I'd start planning before I'd even finished that holiday. And my life was...
Sorry to interrupt. In that sort of zone for so long that you couldn't even identify yourself or make the
Absolutely.
It was because that you were so used to feeling in that way. That makes sense.
That was just me. That was just as far as I knew. I didn't know anything else, because obviously when we move all the way back to the age of 12 and 13, and I went through that grief and that loss, it was around about the age of 14 I started to sneak out the house and go clubbing in town. And then at the age of 15 I met my first partner, my first boyfriend, and then I moved out the house and moved in with him at age 16. And that was all I knew from then. And then that was an abusive relationship, and then I moved home, and then within a couple of months I'd met someone else and I moved out with him, and that was an abusive, and I did that 3 times. And over those about 12 years, they were my teenage years, where, in early 20s, where you find yourself and you discover who you are, and you make silly mistakes and you learn from them. And I missed that because I moved straight into this grown-up world, but it was such a controlling, abusive world that I didn't know any different. And so when I did leave those relationships, I still found myself living those similar patterns, because that was the life that I knew. That was my adult life. I didn't know any different.
You kind of get to a place where you think it's normal. Is that just normal? Because you move from one to the next, and the other one's like that. Andrea said that. She said, this is just like with me, with my MS and stress. When you're that stressed, you can't make a connection.
No, your mind is too focused on the stress and the busy that you can't see the wood for the trees. You're so it's stuck in that stress fog that even when it comes to just rational thinking, you can't, because you're living in that state of fight or flight all of the time. That's your go-to. And when you are in that fight or flight, that's your brain telling you you're in danger. So immediately your brain just wants you to go, just to get out of that situation. So if you're constantly in that state of I need to escape, then your brain just it stops using all of the other parts of your body that you don't need. So your rational thinking disappears, because you don't need rational thinking at the time you need to escape. All you need is your whole focus on escaping. So that's how I lived my life, in a state of escape for years, absolute years. And it did have a hugely detrimental effect on my health. And, I had IBS symptoms, which they can't really test for IBS. It's such a difficult test to have, and all of the symptoms that were different all of the time, and that's all related to stress and things. So at one point my mum asked me to go and get tested for early menopause, because she thought a lot of the symptoms I was having, because I just was becoming really irrational, and I couldn't think straight, and I had all this brain fog, and sometimes I just couldn't string a sentence together. And we went and got tested and it was fine. I hadn't gone into early menopause. But what was happening, which wasn't coming up in any tests, which we found out later, I was starting to have issues with my thyroid. And back then, I didn't even know what a thyroid was.
What is a thyroid? What is it?
Well, the thyroid is one of the three most important organs in your body are your heart, your brain, and your thyroid. So your thyroid controls your whole endocrine system, and that is responsible for body temperature. It's responsible for rational thinking, and it keeps all of every single organ in your body working and functioning properly. It keeps you alive. And it
hormones as well. So your thyroid is in control of your hormones as well, or not?
Yes.
It
controls.
And hormones, as women, I feel like we're like, oh, it's just my hormones because of our periods. But hormones, oh my God, they grow a baby. They are incredible.
They control everything.
Yeah, exactly. So
hormones control absolutely everything in your body, from thinking, from speaking, from breathing, swallowing, sweating. Absolutely everything is controlled by hormones. Your body can't function without regularity of hormones, and that is a huge job of the thyroid. And it wasn't until I was on holiday in Ibiza, and I noticed a lump in my neck. And who knows how long this lump had been there for? I have no idea. But I just happened to be looking in the mirror as I swallowed. We were about to walk out the door, go out to the beach. I had a quick drink of water, and I just caught my reflection in the mirror as I swallowed. And as I swallowed, there was an egg-sized lump in my neck. It was huge. And as I leaned my neck back, it was massive. It protruded right out of my throat. I was like, is that normal? So when my partner called him over, I was like, have a look, is that always been there? Because I just in my head, I couldn't believe it was there, and I had never noticed it before. It was huge. So when we came back home, I went and had all my tests. So they did a biopsy of the lump. I had blood tests done, and I had ultrasound scans. And they all came back clear. There was absolutely nothing wrong. They called it a goiter. They said it was just a growth in my neck. It was absolutely fine. Excuse me, I'll have a quick drink. So they said it was absolutely fine, nothing to worry about. But I wasn't happy with that, because as I was starting to have these tests, I could see that it was getting bigger. And now I knew it was there. I was aware that my voice had changed and it was becoming quite scratchy, and it wasn't difficult to swallow. But when I would practice yoga or anything, or if I would lay on my back, practicing my breathing, it was obstructing my airway. So I continued to go for tests, and everybody said I was fine. And I even had specialists say to me it was all in my head. That there's no way it's obstructing your airway. There's no way you're having difficulty swallowing. The positioning of this lump in your neck should not be affecting your airway. I had cameras down my throat, down my nose. Everything came back fine. And it was only because one of the doctors that I went to see, it was the hair that said to me, it's all in your head. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. The reason that you're feeling these symptoms is because you've put yourself in a panic and a state of stress. And that's why you're imagining these symptoms. Right. I won't lie, I did lose my temper, excuse me, because I knew there was something wrong, and I knew it wasn't right, and I wanted this lump out of my body. So in the end, I saw the professor of the whole department. Wow. That's how I took it. So I saw the professor, and he said to me, so I know you want this lump taken out. That's absolutely fine. So there's 3 reasons why we would do it. We would do it if it's cancer, which it's not. We do it if it was obstructing your airway, which it's not. Or we do it for cosmetic reasons. Yeah, cosmetic reasons.
Surely you are telling them that it's obstructing your airway. Oh my God. Lord.
Yeah, so they were like, oh, we'll do it under cosmetic reasons, which is what we're going to do it for, because you don't like the look of it. And, for vanity, we'll take it out for you. So I was just like, I don't care the reason, just take it out. Mm-hmm. So they agreed to take the lump out, and they take half of my thyroid because it had grown onto the heart of the thyroid. So I had a hemithyroidectomy. So hemi just means half. Right. So they took the left half of my thyroid away. And it was when I woke up in recovery that I noticed that I'd been on the operating theatre longer than I should have been. So my previous life, I was an operating department practitioner. So I worked in theatres for 8 years. So I worked in brain surgery, so brains and spines. So we spent years taking tumours every single day out of people's heads or people's backs. So I knew. Wow. So when I came around in the recovery, he was waiting for me, the professor. Oh, now, first of all, I knew that was a bit strange because they don't normally wait for you in recovery. And he said everything went fine. However, the lump had grown into the muscle in my neck. He said, so we had to take away the lump. We took away your thyroid, and we've taken away a portion of your neck muscle as well. Yeah. So he sent me away, and I had to come back in 2 weeks' time. Because he sent off the lump to be looked at in pathology. Now, I asked him if I could see it, which not many people say that, but I was like, can you see it? I want to have a little look and see it, because I know what cancer looks like. We take it out of heads and brains. We did it every single day, so I knew what it looked like, and he knew what I knew as well. So he said no. He was like, it's already gone. You can't see it. Oh my God. So 2 weeks later, went to see him. And he sat me down and he said, right, so there's been a bit of a curveball. What we thought was nothing has turned out to be quite a huge something. He said, he gave me, when I went to see him, he gave me a 1% chance. He said, there's a 1% chance this is cancer. He's like, and there's absolutely no way. He's like, I would bet my life that this is not cancer. It's 1%. Well, he had to eat his words because, I was diagnosed with stage 2 papillary thyroid carcinoma. So it had spread into the muscle in my neck, and it had spread and destroyed half of the thyroid. So he then gave me the
in the face.
I was really pissed off, I'm not gonna lie. And it was Christmas as well, so it was a week, or Christmas week it was. So I was like, well, Merry Christmas to me. Thank you very much. Like I'd been fighting for this so we were on holiday, and I found it in the beginning of June, end of May, beginning of June. And I fought that long for this to happen. So I was really angry with him. And he even said, he was like, we weren't expecting this. And that morning that he took me in and told me, they had an emergency consultant meeting about me because they didn't expect it. They didn't know what to do about it. And they needed a plan moving forwards of how to treat me now, because my options were so that I could either leave the other half in and just be monitored and see if anything changes with this half, or I could have it taken out and I'd have no thyroid. And obviously at this point, I just did not trust them at all. So all of the tests I'd had said it was fine, so I didn't have cancer, there was nothing wrong with me. So how could I trust them? So it was agreed to have another surgery. So 6 weeks later, I went back and had the other half taken out. So I had a total thyroidectomy. And then I was put on thyroid replacement hormones. So I have to have them every day now just to stay alive. But the stress of all of that. So I had the stress of not knowing what this was in my neck. I had the stress of having to fight all long to get someone to believe me and see me. Then I had the stress of, now you've got cancer. Then I had the stress of, this is the treatment, because then I had to be put on the hormone replacement. I had to have radioiodine therapy as well. So it meant that I had to be quarantined. And at the time, I mean, obviously now we've all been through quarantine now, but then I had to be quarantined all by myself because I was literally glowing and no one could come near me. But the difficult part of that was my son at the time was 7. Now, he knew I was unwell, but he didn't know it was cancer, because children think cancer, you're going to die. And I didn't have the strength to deal with that. And he just didn't need to know that. So he knew I was unwell, but we couldn't be together for that period of time. And the closest we could be was me at the top of the stairs and him at the bottom of the stairs. And that was for 10 to 14 days. So that was so stressful. But we made a secret code. So before I went to have the radioiodine therapy, we made a little secret code. So we'd leave each other messages around the house, and just to be able to just to get through it. It was terrible, but all of that stress, it put me into, it just leveled up that stress in a way that I never ever thought I could imagine. And I know now what that did was it triggered a fibromyalgia in me. So now, and I still have it now. So and the thing is that having fibromyalgia, your rheumatologist tells you to practice yoga, practice meditation, live a healthy, stress-free lifestyle, which is everything that I promote. And it's difficult to explain to people that I have now a stress-related illness when I do what I do. But the reason I have that illness is because of that chronic long-term stress. So it's not the stress I live with now. It's the stress I put my body through and lived with for all those years. So everything that...
Sorry. Interject. Yeah, completely. And when people used to say to me, before I now know what I know about stress, I used to just be like I did before, like, stress, we're all flipping stressed, right? And now when I speak to my clients, and even myself, I have to remind myself of this. When stress, it physically alters your cell structure. So, and when you know the dangers that are behind it, for example, I was speaking to a lady this morning, and she had ME years ago, and chronic fatigue. And I don't know loads about this beauty, but I know her a little bit. But I went, I hope you don't mind me asking, but is there something like, have you experienced some childhood trauma? Because it's really notorious that when my clients come and they're suffering from chronic fatigue and ME, particularly together, that it's related to a stress-related trauma. And she went, well, yeah. And then she came out with all this stuff. I was like, right, that all now makes sense. But I've gone off on a bit of a bloody tangent now. What I wanted to say, I went somewhere else. But yeah, it's like, take it as serious as you would a cancer diagnosis. Because, go on.
No, I was going to say, so you're absolutely right. And stress, actually, I mean, I teach a lot of meditation, and I have practiced and taught and guided people through meditation for years. And I am absolutely obsessed with the science of the brain. And obviously, with working in brain surgery for so long, I've got that medical degree as well. And it has been proven that stress eats holes in the brain, physically damages the body. And, when we think of all of the problems that we have, those health related issues, they are all connected to stress. And what my cancer diagnosis did for me was give me time. And it gave me the time to pause and just exhale, because I couldn't physically do anything else. All my go-tos for avoiding dealing with the problems that I'm going through, I couldn't do it. I had to pause. And in a way, I'm quite grateful for that cancer diagnosis. And it always shocks people when I say that, I'm not glad I got cancer, don't get me wrong, but I'm grateful for that opportunity to, it's almost the universe just picking me up and making me sit down, stop, and just breathe. And when I was going through my treatment, I started to really research my diagnosis. I really started to research what causes cancers, environmental factors, lifestyle factors, And I really became obsessed, and I will say obsessed because it helped me to heal. It helped me go through that process of coping with a cancer diagnosis and coping with all that treatment. For my sort of therapy at the time was understanding it and learning about it, and really understanding how when we are stressed and when we're in that state of stress, we create a really acidic environment in the body, and that stress is external stresses as well as the way we talk to ourselves, that inner voice that sort of makes, that little inner bitch that gives you tells you can't do something, or tells you you're not good enough. All of that internal stress and pressure as well creates acidity in the body. And acidity is the perfect breeding ground for disease to grow. And that's how it all starts. So I started to become obsessed with how we can create an alkaline life, an alkaline lifestyle. And it's not the alkaline diet, it's an alkaline lifestyle. And that is looking after yourself through self-care. So meditation, yoga, better self-talk and better self-care, and just really learning how to create, obviously diet and exercise and things are all included, but it needs to be in balance and it needs to be manageable. Because if you start to change your whole lifestyle and think, I'm going to start running 10K marathons and I'm going to completely change my diet and create these unrealistic goals, because they are unrealistic if you do it all at once, you're going to fall off the wagon. And when you fall off the wagon, then you start feeling bad about it and you start criticizing yourself, and then you're creating that unhealthy environment again, and it snowballs. So I started to, and I know this because I did this. I became vegan. I was running all the time, and I only drank this purest of pure waters, and it was too hard. It was too hard, and my body was in a state of healing as well. And I thought by doing all this, I was giving it all the nutrients and goodness that I needed. But what I was actually doing was putting myself into a bit of a state of shock. My body was trying to mend and trying to get used to a whole new lifestyle. And I couldn't keep it up. It wasn't manageable. So how I do it now is to teach people how to really put it all into their lifestyle, because when you start to do small, simple things that are positive, positives attract positives. And when you start to feel good about the things you're doing, and you start to see and notice like nice lifestyle changes, that's when you start to make it more of a priority rather than having it another thing to do. You start to really want to do it, and it feels good, and you want more of what feels good, so you start to do it a bit more. And it was making it less of a drastic lifestyle overhaul and more of that just positive implementations into what your life already is. And then I was finding that it was really working for me, that I just stripped it all back. I just started to take care of myself bit by bit, just one step at a time. And that's how I teach people today, is that baby steps, work on what people need the most, and we start there, and we just take our time with it, because otherwise people fall into a burnout. And I think a lot of people are talking about burnout lately, and burnout is a real thing. It's almost your body just shuts down, and that's where this illness and this sickness can really start to kick in. And it's about helping people to help themselves. I worked for so long in the NHS and helping people who needed that medical intervention. Whereas now I try to help people by showing them things that they can do that can help prevent them from getting to that stage. Now, don't get me wrong, there's always a place for medicine and there's always a place for surgery and things like that, but we hold so much power over ourselves and over our health and our wellness that people just don't realize. Even though as simple as the power of your breath, if you learn how to breathe efficiently, you can control your stress. You can start to really function properly because your body starts to receive the oxygen and all of the nutrients and the goodness that your body needs. It starts to work at its optimum rather than in this state of striving rather than, and surviving rather than really thriving in that situation. So I really...
What you said about not making it massive, like drastic changes. I went vegan once. I did something similar after I lost my cancer. I went, right, go vegan. It's really hard.
It is really hard. But I think now it's become a lot. I mean, I'm not vegan now, but it's a lot easier, I think, now than it was years ago when I tried to do it. The shops actually cater for it now. And I'm still not a very good cook. That my fridge is full of ingredients. It's not full of food. I'm not a very good cook. So back then, for me, being vegan meant everything from scratch, and my brain, it was just too hard.
Oh God, she's 13 now. She every now and again she goes, "Oh God, Mummy, do you remember that time we were vegan?"
And it does have incredible health benefits, and I definitely do advocate that healthy lifestyle. But for me, my lifestyle is all about balance. I will eat healthy. I will eat the rainbow, but I'll also have a gin and tonic. Life is absolutely about balance. And if you start to deprive yourself of things that you want, then that's when the negative self-talk starts. Because if you do slip off and eat a chocolate bar in your diet, or if you do dry January and you have a drink, if you do that, you've set yourself this goal that if you have that drink, or if you eat that piece of chocolate, or if you slip off your vegan diet, then you start to really attack yourself. And when you start to do that, that really then kicks off the brain, and the brain starts to move into that state of stress again, which then starts to impact on your body, and you're moving back into that acidity again. And it's all about, I'm not a fan of diets. I don't like diets. I like lifestyle changes, because just for that very reason of we're so hard on ourselves as it is. Every single day we are really hard on ourselves. And if we then add the extra pressure of a diet, or the extra pressure of an unachievable goal, you're just going to cause yourself more stress and more pain. So I always tell people to definitely have a goal, but make it a smaller goal. Once you've achieved that goal, it'll feel really good. And then you can move to another goal, and that will feel really good. And then you start to build your confidence, and then you start to really feel good about yourself. And then you can do extra things. And, if you don't meditate every day, if you miss a day, that's okay. That's fine. You can do it again tomorrow. It's just about being nice to yourself and being kinder to yourself, because you live with yourself the most. If people could hear what you say to yourself and how you criticize yourself and the things that you do, how you attack yourself for, if they could hear you, would you still say them?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I did last year after I had Hugo. So I had 2 stone to lose, and I knew I would always lose it, because I've never had a weight issue before, but after all my children, I've needed to lose the excess weight, and Hugo is no different. But because he's my 3rd child, not my 1st or my 2nd, those sorts of things, my workload had gone up. So I love exercise. I do genuinely love exercise, but trying to get to it with a newborn baby was just like near impossible. And that's how I've always maintained my weight, is like eat what I want but exercise, you know, loads. And I realized that something needed to change, and I was getting really frustrated with myself. And then I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm a new mom, I've got this new baby, I'm doing really well. Yeah, I'm doing really well. I just need to look at it in a different way. So I started to walk, as well as looking at my nutrition and eating healthily. I don't like the word diet. I call it eating healthily. If you fall off, then, well, it's not even falling off. If I've had a chocolate bar, then I've had a chocolate. I've got a new problem at the moment where my stress is eat loads of chocolate, but that's a different but I started just to walk with him. I've never been a walker. This has been a new thing. I would just walk out in nature. It was a May baby, and I lost the 2 stone by October. It was gently, though. It wasn't hardcore. It was just gently. If I didn't get to the walk, it didn't matter. You know, those sorts of things. I thought, I'm not doing this to myself anymore. That whole beating myself up. I was like, enough is enough. You know, I am enough. And there's got to be a change.
And that's it. And, you know, not a lot of people know that stress puts weight on.
Yeah.
You know, those constant excess stress hormones, they cause weight, and they also help stop you from losing weight. They make it a lot harder. So when you're putting that stress on yourself to lose weight, you've got to hit this goal, you've got to lose weight. That stress is surging those stress hormones through your body that's stopping you from losing the weight. That holds on to it. So, you know, it's that vicious cycle. And I think the key to everything really is, you know, that the key to that healthy lifestyle is being kind to yourself. It's absolutely being kind to yourself, because if you're not in a positive state of mind, then you're really going to struggle. And I don't mean all of the time. It'd be really bad of me to say that you need to be positive all the time. That's absolutely not the case. Nobody can. If anyone finds the key to that, but, you know, that's not the case, because, you know, I always talk about balance. You need to have those down days. You need to have those days where you feel a bit crap, where you know. I call it, you know, you go into standby mode. You just literally just slow down and power down, because you need that time just to reflect. You need that time to release anything that may be causing you a bit of pressure or overwhelm, or whatever's made you go into that dip. You need to feel it. You know, what's that saying? You need to feel it to heal it. You need to move through those feelings to be able to come back up. And how can we possibly appreciate the highs if we don't experience the lows? You know, there's always that balance. You need to have both, but you need to be kind to yourself while you're in it, because if you're really struggling and feeling a bit crappy, and you're thinking, oh, I've got these deadlines, I have to do this, I have to do that, but I feel terrible. And, you know, the more you're feeling like that whilst you're in that state, the longer you're going to stay in it for. You know, that stress increases, and you're going to stay in that space for longer, and that can also cause burnout. So if you just allow yourself to be in that power down and accept that's where you are, and be kind to your body and take that as a rest day, then you'll move back out of that so much quicker. It's all about being kind to yourself.
A lot of my clients, when we've done, you know, the work that we've done, and then they're obviously, the people that I work with, they're feeling down, they're on the floor. So it's once they're up off that floor and they feel that they're on their way up. If they feel that they're having a down day, they panic. And that's one of the things, because they think they're going back to where they are. And that's one of the things that, you know, I talk about, is that it's normal to do, can I get my hand in this, to go, you know, up and down. And that's normal.
Life's not linear.
Yeah, exactly. What's not normal is being on the floor for a long periods of time. That's when it's time to seek help. But the ups and the downs, I treat sometimes when I just feel a bit, that's the day to chill out, if it's possible with children, you know. But that's the day to take that step back, and tomorrow you'll feel different again. It's just,
and that's it. Like, absolutely embrace those down days just as much as you would the up days. You know, it's okay to be in that down state, but it's not okay to stay there. recognize that that's how you feel. It's all about that self-awareness and really being mindful of how you feel, being mindful of where you're at and what you need in that moment. What do I need while I feel like this? Do I need to rest? Do I need to talk to somebody? What is my go-to? What do I need? And give yourself that permission to have it. And once you acknowledge and accept that's where you are, you will move quite quickly back out of it. And I would never ever sit here and say I'm absolutely perfect and my days are always like this. My days go like this. But the difference for me now is I don't stay there. I recognize I'm there and I'll come back up. And that's what we're doing here. We're helping people to build that self-care toolkit, build those go-tos that when you start to feel like that and you start to feel down, this is what I need to bring me back out. This is what I need right now to sit in this space, accept this space, and then move through this space. We're giving people those tools that helps to prevent them having as many of those down days, but it also helps them when they're in those down days to start moving through.
To process it, isn't it? So what would be sort of like your top tip for someone who perhaps they're running around their life, taking care of lots of other people, saying yes, maybe a little bit too much. What would you say to that person because in order to do those things, there's going to have to be moments where they say no in order to make time to do those things and to allow them, their body to come to that alkaline state, those sorts of things. So they might have some feelings attached to saying no, or feeling like they're letting someone down, or the pressure that they're putting on themselves that is fueling that negative self-talk. What would be your sort of top piece of advice that you could give to that person?
I think I'm a big fan of reminding people to breathe. I think if people ever think of me, they think about breathing, because that's nearly always what I say to people. Breathe. So definitely taking time to pause and breathe. And one of the exercises that I did when I was at Be Inspired was to show people how they can move their state of mind into a resting response in as little as 60 seconds. Ooh. Now, everybody's got 60 seconds, so it doesn't matter how rushed you are, how stressed you are, whatever you've got going on, you will have 60 seconds. And that is actually only 6 deep breaths. So when you take those deep breaths, and that's in through the nose and blow it out through the mouth. So really breathing in deep and full really expands the tummy. So you almost imagine that as you're breathing in, you're breathing deep down into your hips. So really inflate the tummy. And then as you exhale out through your mouth, just blow it all away, but let your shoulders relax. So breathing in and then breathing out. So you do that for 60 seconds and that starts to switch on the relaxation response, because when you are rushing around and you're in that state of fight or flight, your brain is not going to believe you when you say, right, I need to stop and pause and everything's okay. And me saying to you, breathe, your brain's thinking, nah, I've got this to do, no way. So it's not going to happen. But if you give yourself just those 6 breaths, then your body starts to automatically move into relaxation. And if you want to, obviously you could do longer, but it takes seconds for your brain to go, oh, actually, hang on, this feels okay. And it starts to do it. Right. So the first thing I always say to everybody is just pause and breathe. Everyone's got 60 seconds. Even if you're sat at the traffic lights, 60 seconds, you can breathe. You're waiting for the kettle to boil, you can breathe. If you're on the toilet having a wee, you can breathe.
Stay 6 breaths longer.
You've got the time, and that's how I teach people how to, that's just a small example of fitting it into your life. If you're so busy and someone tells you to add self-care onto that massive long list of stuff you've got to do, it will be at the bottom. You will never put it at the top of your list. Even with all the goodwill in the world, something will take priority over it all of the time. So I help people to fit it in. Everyone can breathe while they're in the shower. That's one of the things that I teach people to do is breathe. But the 3 most important things that I try to guide people to do, which helps to boost endorphins massively, is movement. So gentle stretches. If you're sat at your desk, you can just roll the shot, move the body. You know, it doesn't have to be, when I say movement, it doesn't have to be going for a run. We can't always fit it in. But if you're sat at your desk, you know, or if you are doing a lot of driving, whatever it is, if you find that you're quite stagnant, you need to move, because stress traps in the body, it traps in the joints, it traps in your body. So even if you just stand up and shake it all out and then carry on working, you're releasing that stress. And you know, we've got yoga, we've got walking, we've got any kind of exercise. Movement really does release those endorphins in the body, and it's a huge thing. The other thing I suggest is meditation. I'm a huge advocate for meditation, especially I teach modern meditation, which is an easy mantra style meditation, which absolutely anybody can do. And, you know, I've had people come to my classes who don't believe meditation works, who have my classes emotional because they felt something, and they just want to hug me, and they're like, so thank you so much. Like, just because I show it in a really simple, easy way. Because it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to go sit in an ashram in silence or dress in white. It doesn't have to be like that. And if anything, I teach meditation in busy environments, because life is busy. So, you know, there's no point in learning how to be calm in a quiet room, because life's not quiet.
Very true.
I teach people how to do it in a busy environment, so that they can switch all of that, filter it all out, and just come back to themselves. And that's really important. So, you know, meditation, 10 minutes a day if you can do it. If you can't, don't worry, do it the next day. Others get relaxations, because they put you into a state of calm, a meditative state as well. And the other thing, the last thing I would say, is mindset. So reframing negative thinking patterns. So thinking about, you know, why is this rather than why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me? This is teaching me something. I'm gaining something from this experience, and becoming mindful. What is it? And then there's affirmations. So repeating positive affirmations and journaling. You know, movement, meditation, and mindset are the three go-tos that I definitely always advise anyone that asks me. But I think if you want to, I've got a little freebie that I could share actually with your group, and that is it just shows you how to reframe that negative thinking and really change a busy mindset into a more relaxed, calming mindset. So just really how to release all that stress just in a simple way. So I can drop the link in if that would be helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much for those. So if people are watching, they're thinking, I like the sound of Laura, I want to learn more from Laura, how can they get in touch with you?
So so I am available on my socials. I'm Align Lifestyle, so I'll tag all of that in here as well. And then there's alignlifestyle.co.uk. You can find me. I'm launching on May the 18th. We were talking about this earlier, so now's a perfect time to mention it. I'm part of a book collaboration, so I'm going to be an author, published author, on May the 18th. And the book is called From the Ashes She Is Ignited, and it's all about overcoming adversities. So my chapter is all about my backstory, which is pretty much what I've gone through here, but it's in more detail. And it shows how you can really use that dark negative space, that difficult time that you've gone through. You can use that as an elevator to push you forwards, to bring you to a better space now. You know, when I was ill and when I was in those dark, stressful years, I would never in a million years have thought that I'd be sitting where I am now. I would never have thought that I would be someone who could help someone else through just what I've been through. You know, it really makes me feel that everything that I've gone through, I've got no regrets. I absolutely appreciate all of those really shitty times, those hard times, everything that I've gone through, and even I still live with fibromyalgia now. I still live with chronic fatigue now, but I have managed to make that work for me rather than that rule me, and those illnesses and those sometimes really debilitating situations, they don't control me anymore. And I show people how to live like that as well. I'm just a normal person who has learned how to control the things that are happening to her rather than letting them control me.
That's it. It's using them to be your power, isn't it? Your superpower, as opposed
Absolutely.
to the other way. I really identify with that. With like at the time when I hit the deck, literally, with my depression and anxiety, I am so grateful for it now, because if I hadn't, for years, I realised how much I was surviving, not thriving, not living, not happy. Those I was in terms of love my children, love my now husband, those sorts of things. But prior to that, I was just surviving, basically. And if I hadn't have hit the deck the way I hit it, with my depression and anxiety and the grief with mum and everything like that, I wouldn't have had to have looked at it to make a change. So, when people come to me, and I'm sure, with you as well, and they're in such a shit space, I'm like, it's really actually a good thing that you're there, because that is what motivates you, that you've got to make a change. It's until you get to that point, people just keep surviving. They just keep surviving. And
that's why my programs, so all of my programs that I offer are completely bespoke. They are bespoke programs because everybody is different. Everyone's got their own lived experiences, and everyone needs to start at their own starting point. There's no one size fits all with this. So all of my programs are absolutely bespoke for that reason. We've got really, really similar stories. We've gone through similar experiences, and especially in terms of how trauma has played out in our bodies and in our minds. And I think, a lot of people experience that, but we are still completely individual in the way our healing journey needs to be. And so that's why I really focus on that bespoke healing for people, because it's so necessary.
Yeah, it is. It's so true. I totally hear what you're saying with that. Laura, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So wonderful having you on. If anyone has got any questions, please put them in the comments. Laura will come in and answer anything for you. Now, obviously, you're welcome to inbox. I'm sure you're okay with that. And I'm sure we will come together again soon, Laura.
Absolutely.
I love what you're doing and love you. I think you're amazing. You've got a podcast.
Oh, you too. Thank you. I am. So podcast is coming. It is in the early stages at the moment. So I'm recording a nice batch so that I can be bringing them out regular for everyone. But yeah, so my podcast it's all about making time. So making time work for you. And it's going to cover all things health and wellness, but it's also going to cover a lot of lifestyle things as well. So being able to fit things into your day without it taking over.
Just before you go, I've got this. Wow, this has been amazing, so relevant for me, and I completely resonate. Thank you for all the amazing tips and positivity. I knew they'd love you, Laura.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Andrea, oh my God, inspiration. Oh my gosh, you are. You really are.
Oh, thank you, Andrea.
So thank you so much, and thank you everybody, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye bye.
Thank you.